But for those of you that like, you hardly ever eat, it's like, it's more than that. It's also telling your body to less insulin resistance. It reverses insulin resistance immediately to some degree. And then your insulin goes down. So now you need less insulin. So now you have less insulin resistance. So now you need less insulin. It's a cycle of getting healthier and healthier. And part of that is weight loss itself.
Welcome to MyMD Unscripted, where healthcare gets personal and the script gets tossed. I'm Dr. Clint Carter, ER doctor turned direct primary care freedom fighter, on a mission to challenge how our healthcare system treats patients in America. In every episode, my expert guests and I dive into real conversations about what's broken and how we can fix it by making healthcare about people, not just managing disease. It's time to rethink what healthcare should be and how we can make it better together. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the MyMD Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Clint Carter, and today we're going to talk about weight loss. Obviously, everyone's talking about weight loss, but I keep seeing it in my clinic, and we just can't keep answering the same questions over and over again without doing a podcast about it. So I thought I'd do a quick solo pod and kind of cover the high points because, quite frankly, as you all know, it's just calories in, calories out, right? So what's the problem? And why aren't you losing the weight? They've been telling us that for 100 years. So, daily, I have patients come in frustrated. They're not able to lose the weight. Maybe they're not able to use it like they used to. Maybe they never could. They've tried every diet imaginable. Some of them have worked temporarily. Some of them never worked. And ultimately, there's a feeling of being defeated, of being a failure in some kind. But the reality is that the biology here is super complex. If one diet was the right diet, we'd all be on it. And the genetics are so strong. So let's get into the way that we think about weight loss here at MyMD Select. I walk through it in kind of with 5 levers, somewhere between diet, movement, inflammation, hormones and medications, and genetics, right? So let's, kind of start at the front because everyone focuses on diet as a part of a weight loss strategy. And it is a part of literally every weight loss strategy. But I have so many people that just don't have a problem with calories in, calories out. One of the things that happens along the way that when you try one of these diets that's relatively extreme is that your metabolism adapts. If you're used to eating a lot and you eat a lot less, at first you'll get some movement, but eventually that'll become normal, right? So much of your hunger and your, how often you need to eat, how quickly you get full, all of that, so much of that is controlled by hormones. So much of that is determined by stress because cortisol and all of those hormones and the adrenalines are coming in and your body thinks it's running from a bear, so it needs to feed. And then, sleep, your body is supposed to heal and recover during sleep. And if all you are is inflammatory and sleep apnea or releasing stress hormones all night long, then your insulin resistance is going to be high. It's just so complicated. So for the most part, when it comes to diet, the main thing is what it's not. It's not a calories in, calories out calculation and you're done. Different people respond to different diets for different reasons. So, for me, I like to say, let's start with a protein first strategy for most people. It doesn't necessarily mean low carb. A lot of people do much better with lower carbs. Some people do better with slightly higher carbs if they've got that metabolism roaring. If you've ever had a 30-year-old trainer, I'm sure they gave you a diet that said eat, 2 cups of rice every 3 hours and couldn't understand why you weren't losing weight because you don't have their metabolism. But, protein first, it feeds the muscle, which is a metabolic tissue. It makes you feel full early. Carbohydrates, they are fuel for your body. It's your body's primary source, preferred source of fuel. There are diets like the keto diet where you just don't eat hardly any carbs and your body finally gives just like, fine, I'll burn ketones instead. And it goes into this backup metabolism. And the problem with that is sustainability. And for some people, that's a little bit inflammatory. For others, they feel great. I feel great on keto, but it's just not realistic. I'm not going to stick with that. I did it more on than off for 4 years, and it was a thing. As my kids got older, it just a different meal than them got really old. So we found something more like a balanced lifestyle that works great. Your fats, fats are a necessary part of any diet. They're also gonna be there. The old low fat diet that the cardiologists were pushing since the 80s, turns out that's stupid. It doesn't work. And the carbs tell your body to make insulin, which tells your body to make cholesterol. So your cholesterol doesn't even go down unless you do a zero fat diet or you happen to be one of the people that lose weight on that. But most of the time, if you're eating a low fat diet, you're eating a high carb diet, and that just doesn't work. Your fats, you're not going to get a ton more. So I think, for the keto folks that are doing the fat bombs and stuff, that's fine if you're all in keto. I never was a fat bomb guy, but in general, your fats are just going to be there. So if you really focus on protein and carbs, I would say for most people, decrease the percent of your meal that's carbohydrates. Make sure you're eating that protein and getting full, and then, eat your veggies and the salads and the things that are going to help you feel full and give you those nutrients. Cause it's easier to lose weight when your body is well fed with micronutrients as well. It's not just the macros. So do that and then have some carbs with your meal. Unless you're doing keto, you're going to eat some carbs and that's going to be fine. Proteins and fats are kind of high calorie. And to the extent that calories do matter a little bit, they matter a lot. It just depends on your metabolism, how much they matter. Then that's something that you might consider. Just kind of keep an eye on how many calories you're doing. But if you're getting full on protein and limiting your carbs, most people are going to find that to work. However, it doesn't work by itself. The next lever is movement. And so by movement, most people mean exercise. I'm going to stick with movement. It's kind of the functional medicine way of saying using your body to burn calories, of which exercise is a super important part. I believe strongly in resistance training to build muscle, which we said is a highly metabolic tissue that will help burn calories while you sleep and while you sit at work and that kind of thing. Muscle is the currency of longevity. So especially if you're in your 50s and beyond, weight training to build and or maintain your muscle mass, hopefully with some hormone support so that your exercise is not in vain, will help preserve the muscle and bone mass along the way. But movement is more than exercise. Movement is going on a walk. Movement is counting your steps throughout the day. There's this concept of NEAT, N-E-A-T, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which just basically means burning calories, right? And so whether you're doing housework, whether you're pacing back and forth while you're at work, whether you're doing a stand-up desk and moving around, it's all the calories you burn for all the hours that you're not asleep. And so those do matter. I do tell my patients that while they do matter and they are a part of a weight loss plan, that movement and steps are great. Some dedicated exercise, usually with some resistance training and probably with some cardio, which is kind of where walking comes in. We don't need to all be marathoners, just a brisk walk where you're having to cut your breath up with, cut your conversation up with breaths if you're on the phone or talking with someone. That means you're going fast enough. And that, if you'll do that for 30 to 40 minutes a few times a week, that will actually increase your metabolism 24/7. Your body's like, oh, so we're exercising. I personally hate cardio with a passion. I don't mind going on a walk, but otherwise I hate cardio. So I do circuit training, which is resistance training in a circuit. You go from one thing to the next thing and the next thing, and your heart rate's like 160, and your trainer's like, let's go. And I'm like, no, hold on, I'm going to pass out. So I would never let him get me to the point of passing out. I would not give him the satisfaction. To be clear, Corey, that's not going to happen. However, I do find that some dedicated exercise, if not at the beginning, sometimes to help break through a weight loss plateau, doing something a little bit more dedicated and intense. If you're old enough and this is new and you're new to the game, number one, don't hurt yourself. And number two, let's make sure you're heart healthy enough to sort of start training like that, going on more brisk, longer walks, that kind of thing. And it brings up, a lot of our patients are limited by injuries or, pain or just other lifestyle reasons they can't get out and do that very well. They're taking care of a demented spouse or, whatever's going on. It makes it hard. One thing that, all this is personalized medicine, right? We have to figure out how we're going to get the movement in to help with not only weight loss, but really weight loss is almost like weight loss is like the gateway drug to being metabolically healthy, right? Because everybody wants to lose weight. Most people don't know what the heck metabolic health even means. So for me, metabolic health in this case has a lot to do with inflammation and insulin resistance and having a body that spends more time burning calories than it does storing calories. Your body doesn't do both well. And so it likes, if when you eat, especially carbs, and your insulin goes up, when your insulin is up, you're in storage mode. That's insulin's job, is to store things. It puts the sugar into your muscle and your brain and your fat and wherever, and you're just in storage mode. That's why if after a high carb meal, a lot of times you feel like you need to take a nap. You, your metabolism is low and you're just sort of storing things. But when the insulin comes down, then you get into burn mode and you can think better. That's why carbs are important, but too many carbs, you get your insulin too high and you just feel like you just need to go lay down. So metabolically healthy folks, after they eat, the insulin spikes and then it goes down quickly and you enter into metabolic, burn mode, if you will. And then you're sharper, you have more energy, you're solving problems, you feel well until you get hungry enough that your body's like, yeah, I kind of burned through all of that. Let's feed again. And so there are folks that are so metabolically revved up and healthy that they have to eat often. Most of us adults in America probably get away with some intermittent fasting and some, healthy choices while we use our movement throughout the day, right? But having a super inflamed gut where your everything is triggering some sort of autoimmune and you've got your microbiome isn't where, we've had so many episodes on gut health. I'm not going to go into it too deep, but so much of your body's inflammation has to do with what we eat and how we move and how we sleep and how we stress. And so whether it's insulin resistance or visceral fat, sleep deprivation, the other gut health stuff, that has a lot to do with how you're going to respond to what you eat and how much you move, right? We want to be metabolically healthy. And people who enter these weight loss journeys are unknowingly usually also chasing after metabolic health. And it's a different race for everybody. Everybody's journey is personalized. So, whether you've got PCOS or metabolic syndrome, which is basically prediabetes and, to most of you, and, you're carrying the extra fat tissue, which has a lot of the extra hormone negative effects and all those things, you end up with some insulin resistance and so your insulin doesn't come down quickly and you stay in storage mode longer, which makes it harder to lose weight. All those pieces come in. That's where you're a doctor and you kind of work through it. And if you're in one of those states, then that's kind of where I like to bring up the weight loss medications as a part of it. Because for the longest time, weight loss medications, you were trading health for weight loss. And you hoped that in the end, being lighter, having lost weight would make you healthy enough to offset the fact that you were on phentermine and stimulants and the other sort of like psychologically, active medications. But now we have the GLP-1s and GIP and all this new class of injectable, mostly injectable. Now they're coming out with oral. I'm not exactly sure how that works because ultimately it's a protein that your body makes or something very close to it. And so when you ingest them, the hard part is when you ingest that, your body breaks it down into amino acids. We covered that in a previous show as well. So I'm glad they're coming out with some oral stuff because shots are a barrier to entry for so many folks. But the idea is that you want this protein that your body makes anyway, or something very similar to it, in your bloodstream so that when you eat, you do feel full sooner. You do sort of slow the transit through the gut. So you stay full longer. But for those of you like, you hardly ever eat. It's like, it's more than that. It's also telling your body to less insulin resistance. It reverses insulin resistance immediately to some degree. And then your insulin goes down. So now you need less insulin. So now you have less insulin resistance. So now you need less insulin. It's a cycle of getting healthier and healthier. And part of that is weight loss itself. Part of that is movement itself. Part of that is a lower carb diet for most folks. And then part of it is that these metformin is an oral medicine that does that a little bit as well. That's why everyone usually all the pre-diabetes and diabetes folks start with metformin typically. It can have some GI side effects a little bit, but so does, it can cause bloating and diarrhea, where this causes heartburn and constipation. But in the end, if you dose this right and you avoid the side effects, then you get less insulin resistance. You get lower insulin levels overall. Your insulin comes down faster. And then along the way, it tells your liver to not make as much sugar because, hey, we're good. We just ate some. So you can chill out there. And it tells the brain, oh, by the way, I'm full and I'll be full for a while. And I don't really care about food anymore. It takes away your cravings. And so I guess if I don't care what I'm going to eat, I might as well do that thing Dr. Carter was talking about with the eat the protein first and maybe some veggies, and then maybe I'll have a carb if, at the end. You just, you can make healthier food choices because your body's not craving some processed carbs that were going to jack up your gut and your insulin at the same time. So, one thing about these medications is it's very natural, even though there's a needle involved. It's just to avoid the gut. So the gut doesn't break it down because it's a protein. It's a little protein that your body makes anyway, but it's natural. It's working with your body and not against it. Most medications by big pharma are manipulating receptors or blocking or activating receptors and just trying to trick the body. But here we're just telling the body, do what you do, just do a little bit more of it. And so it's not a shortcut. You can't just get on these and not exercise and not eat right. If you just don't exercise and you're just eating processed carbs until the medicine says you're full, then you'll probably lose some weight for a little while, but you'll lose 30-40% of your muscle mass along the way, and you will gain back your fat after you quit your, you know, ill-advised strategy, and then you'll be down muscle and up fat. And you wonder why these yo-yo diets don't work. And I do have some patients that just don't tolerate them. Like there isn't a low enough dose, even at the compounded medication, there's just not a low enough dose where they don't get nauseated or just feel yucky. And usually those folks are in a state of mourning because they're like, everyone else is loving it and I just can't tolerate it. And it's like, it's okay. There's other strategies, but the meds we're talking about here are these compounded semaglutide, tirzepatide. There's more coming out, but it's doing it right. Those clinics that just sell you a bottle, slap you on the butt and tell you good luck, and tell you to do whatever the packaging said, they're doing you wrong. You need someone to walk with you, the lowest effective dose, avoid the side effects, do some micro dosing. You can split your dosing, go as slow as possible. And then when you start getting close to your goal and you're like, well, I guess I'm done with this medicine. You're like, no, let's wean it down. Let's micro dose the other way. Let's train your body to continue doing what you're doing without it. And then if you're like me, you like to have a bottle in the fridge so that once every 3 weeks, I can take a half of a dose to just tell myself to get out of the pantry and stop looking for carbs at 10 o'clock at night. There are ways to do this that are better. The last lever, sort of lever 5, that, it's less of a lever to pull because it's not super manipulatable, but it's really your genetics. The lever that we pull here is like personalization because, if everyone in your family has always been overweight, the majority of the folks have diabetes or pre-diabetes. Weight loss has just not been a thing. And yet you want to be metabolically healthy. We need to know, we need to know that that's part of your strategy. And so we're going to work in, genetically, the thing about genes is when you do X, you turn on these genes, and when you do Y, you turn on these other genes, and genes make our DNA that make RNA that make proteins that do things. And so your DNA is set, but which genes are on is variable. They call that epigenetics. And that's part of the reason why we can still work with folks that are, frustrated with the fact that they were born, that they're quote unquote swimming in the wrong end of the gene pool, and that, all their skinny friends can eat whatever they want. And here they are, gaining weight and PCOS or whatever's going on. And so this is where we work on the different pieces, whether you genetically have some, you're genetically predisposed to insulin resistance, or, you don't metabolize fat well, you're always hungry because of the hormone responses, exercise usually just makes you feel inflamed and cruddy. And, what can we do with that? And that's really where that personalized approach to getting little victories, gradually changing that metabolism in your favor so that your body works with you instead of against you. Maybe this new class of medications can be a key to help unlock that door, hopefully, but maybe. But there's just everyone's so unique. Some people love a low carb diet. Some people feel kind of cruddy on a low carb diet and do fine with a balanced diet. Some people, like I said, are super high metabolizers. And if they don't eat, if you're like a trainer, you eat chicken and rice, which apparently there's more to life than chicken and rice. But if you don't eat chicken and rice 5 times a day, then you feel cruddy because you're trying to keep that metabolic machine going. Well, I mean, more power to you, but that's where we just kind of come in and say, okay, let's personalize this thing and make it work. So, precision medicine is coming to weight loss. It's here. Or there's a new clinic on every corner offering semaglutide and tirzepatide, and they're for the most part they're just cashing in on the movement. They're not really walking this journey with you. They may or may not even have the information to help you. So when it comes to pulling this all together, weight loss, it really involves all 5 levers. There's the diet piece, the movement piece, the inflammation and metabolism piece, becoming metabolically healthy. It's such a beautiful thing. It feels so much better. There's a reason why people who lose significant weight typically feel so much better. They're just metabolically healthier. They're less inflamed. The medications can play a role, and then the personalization based on genetics and other factors like that, as well as just the factors of life, the responsibilities and stressors of your life that are in the way, and how we're gonna play within the rules of your game and make it personal. So patience, you guys, you need if you've struggled with this in the past, give yourself some slack. Stop blaming, stop guilting, stop the negative talk. Like, for someone who's been depressed as heck, I know, that I know what it's going on inside your head, right? Like, it's just that internal monologue. It's not for you. And so let's get to the point where you say, okay, listen, there's more to this than calories in, calories out. It's not about willpower. Willpower sucks. Let's deal with the biology, the reality, the hormones, the metabolic stuff, maybe plus or minus medications. But let's see what happens when we get the whole equation and take it as a whole, and maybe some real progress can happen for you. So that's my bit on weight loss. If weight loss has been super frustrating for you, give us a holla. If you're in our area around the Tyler area, Select, or really anywhere in Texas, we can do so much of this remote. Then and give us a call and let us help take care of you with personalized medicine and figure out which of these levers, which lever in each category is going to work for you. And then let's figure out what else you need. But I love that the world is waking up to the idea that the FDA turned the food pyramid upside down, and we've just been going about weight loss all wrong, and it's not coincidence. It's not just the genetic pool in America that has the majority, like well over 50% of the people in America are overweight, and there's some statistics that say that by 2030 that like 49% of America will be technically obese by by their standards. I think their standards are kind of dumb. And I think that the point they're trying to make is we've been doing something wrong for a long time. Let's figure that out. And this is a lot of it. You need help. You need someone to walk with you through this journey. You need someone to help you celebrate those little victories. You need someone to get that negative talk out of your head when you plateau. Plateauing on a weight loss journey is part of the journey. Your body is just saying, hey, I was storing that up for the famine. Stop it. And you're like, there is no famine. And you just keep going. And eventually your body will give in and say, okay, fine. And we'll lose a little bit more weight till the next plateau. It's just, you know, we were created, or, for those of you that feel like we've evolved over a bazillion years, that is what helped people survive, is the ability to store for the famine. But we're past that now. And so let's do this. There's no quick fix here. This is metabolic health is the key. And you guys are, you're listening to these podcasts, you're You're out there researching, you know better. Hang in there, keep up the good fight, and thanks for hanging out with me, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks for joining me today on MyMD Unscripted. I hope today's conversation opened your mind and inspired you to imagine a better path for your health and therefore life. If you found value in this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone passionate about transforming healthcare. Real change starts with real conversations, so let's keep them going. Until next time, stay well, stay curious, and never stop pushing for better.